Greetings, viewers, and welcome to a whole new episode of the OER Live Leaders Speak. Today, we are sitting down with two very proficient individuals in the field of human resources or HR. They're none other than Mr. Murali Santanam, the CEO of Matram One Advisory, and Venkatesh Palakkad, the principal consultant at RabHR. Let's dive into the interview. So, gentlemen, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is going to be the roller for the HR series that we are trying to focus on with Leaders Speak. Now, one of the first questions I have is how much has human resource development changed in the last 2 decades? Now, with your permission, I will start with Mr. Murali. Mr. Murali, what can you tell us about that?
I think in the last 2 decades, two major changes I have seen in my experience. One is at least 10-20 years ago, the HR function was structured very sub-functionally. For example, you had a compensation expert, you had a performance expert, you had a recruitment expert. But over a period of time, and in fact in 3M we did this change also, we created what we call as a single point contact, which got converted to a business partner role. So a very big shift that happened was having a set of domain experts who would focus on the expertise area and a set of business partners who would liaise with business guys, understand the business and work with the business guys to deliver what the business wants. That's one big change that happened. Though in my opinion, the business partnering role maturity is not yet as expected. I would expect a lot more because the business knowledge, the domain knowledge of that particular product has not yet reached the HR guys as yet. But it's a great shift. The second is oft repeated one, which is the technology piece. So HR technology is starting to become a pretty exciting and a favorite specialization. There are some management institutions which are talking of technology itself as a part of a syllabus. So digitization, technology, using technology, moving to chatbots and all of this is the second big trend that is happening. So two things: business partnering, moving from functional to business focus, and moving from manual processes to digitized technology enablement. These are two things I would
Perfect. Now, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so what I would like to do is to try and answer the same question from a regional perspective and more specifically Oman perspective. Because I've lived in Oman for 21 years. The shift which Murali just mentioned, if you look at Oman as a market, happened a little differently because of geopolitical reasons and socioeconomic reasons, policy changes, etc. So the way I would look at this question is slightly different. So Oman, with the government's initiative to nationalize jobs, one major portion which was taken was human resource. In fact, as per the rule, most of the HR departments needs to be 100% managed by nationals. So that brought in a major change the way in which HR functions here, and it saw a lot of expats who were occupying senior roles move away and giving way for talented nationals to take over those roles. So two ways of looking at it. One is, yes, it created a lot of opportunities for young nationals to take up roles in the human resource department. But the challenge was that since this transition happened pretty quick, talent development, knowledge gaining, competency improvement have all been under strain. So that's why in our own kind of work we do, we focus a lot on imparting HR functional knowledge for senior leaders or for HR leaders, because in a normal situation, what should have happened in 20 years happened in about 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, the business partnering is happening to a small extent, but it is still a very generic HR model which is generally followed by most of the companies. The big change is, this transition which has happened with the HR function predominantly 85-90% today managed by nationals.
Wonderful. So there has, from what I understand, there has been a shift of the people who are undertaking the roles in HR.
Yes.
And the second part that I really do take away from this is how technology has changed a lot. Can you tell me how COVID has set in motion a digital change in the HR field? Maybe Mr. Murali can shed some light on that.
Yeah. To me, COVID is a blessing in disguise. I know that it's not the right thing to say, but what it has done to organizations and people is it has forced them to change the model of working. What any organization would not have even dreamt of, working from home, working from anywhere, it made people say, choose it. It was a push to people to say, now start doing it. That is, I think, one big change. Having said that, it also has a bit of what I would like to call as a negative thought process in employees' minds. I can work from anywhere. Nobody is going to monitor me. And in fact, I was talking to Venkatesh about a survey that we did in India with about 360 companies, cutting across all sectors of companies of 500 size and 10,000 size. And one of the key questions there was, what is your connect with your people? Leadership connect and manager connect. It actually, daily connects that used to happen at work became weekly and monthly connects. Now, what we saw in that survey also is that when weekly and monthly connects happened, productivity dropped, business growth dropped.
True.
When weekly and daily connects started happening, in those companies, productivity went up. So that's another thing that is changing the way people are managing their own teams. The third thing from my perspective is the ability of the managers or the willingness of the managers to talk to their own team members about their careers, about their growth, has dropped drastically. Because now what is happening is it's becoming task assignment. Okay, today you finish this. Tomorrow we'll talk about the next task. So all the meetings or connects, even Zoom Connect or Digital Connect, is all about task assignment, task completion. I don't think managers have the time, or it's not easy to do it on a video conference to talk about the career or talk about a career choice or growth. I think these are three major shifts that are happening according to me.
As a layman, when I first entered the media field, what I can tell you is that I was groomed by certain people in my organization, and that made me be loyal to the organization, as is the case now. What can you tell about how much loyalties are going to change as we grow away from a very personal relationship between an employee and an employer?
Absolutely. You must have read in papers, and it's all over the internet, that the world is going through what is called as the Great Resignation, right? US alone has lost 20 million people who have decided to quit jobs. Okay, so again, connecting it to COVID, COVID has transformed this entire mindset of what people expect from jobs. Okay, so one takeout of what you are saying is that the way I would look at the world moving ahead and the perspective. Employees are going to be treated as individual brands, individual companies, or individual institutions. Okay, and the most popular word is gig working, right? Everybody would do a gig, as you said. There is no organization, there is no career. You come, you do your job, and then you move away, right? Whether we like it or not, with technology enabling the possibility of anybody working and connecting and contributing, and with a lot of collaborative tools like Slack and your Microsoft Teams and things like that, helping and aiding things like that, we are going to see this happen, and this would again take away that loyalty factor completely away, because I'm not wedded to any organization. Okay, I'm an individual. I have certain competencies. I am able to perform certain tasks well, competitively. So you hire me, right? Where I sit, what I do, whom I work with in my free time is none of your thing. I'm not expecting for a career. I'm expecting for what you would pay me for the kind of work I've done. Okay, this is going to be reality in the next 5 years.
True.
I'm seeing it happen.
I think the other thing, sorry, I just wanted to add one more point. Because the gig working is going to take off, is expected to take off, employees are going to start choosing their companies. It's a big shift. No more companies are saying, are you suitable or not? Now the employees are going to say, are you my suitable employer? That's one. The second thing that's going to happen is, and one of the things that we were also talking about is, people will become committed to their deliveries. I'm doing a gig work for you, for him, for that company A, B, C, D. I have to deliver it. You don't need a manager to chase this person to deliver, irrespective of the level of seniority of the person. So these are two things that are going to also shake up the way organizations look at people.
One point that he did mention is being wedded to a company. Maybe it's not going to happen in the coming future. Should somebody be wedded to a company? Should you be loyal to your company?
It's a very good question. In fact, there is no company. The company doesn't exist without people, right? So it's the manager and the people who are representing the company. They are the ambassadors to the company. But again, what we see from all the trends, and we are probably doing crystal ball viewing or what do you say, crystal ball gazing. But people are going to start getting loyal to their own technical and functional competencies than to any organization. They probably will get loyal to customers. They'll probably get loyal to specific areas of specialization which they will work. It doesn't matter which company offers it. And it's almost like, it's like a supermarket with 10 different things. You pick what you want. That's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I would just add, I have seen a lot of professionals from my own generation who have decided to, quit corporate and be on their own. They're ready to do gigs, right? They very specifically tell us that if it is work and compensation, I'm interested to do.
Right.
I'm not interested to do anything else. If there is a work in performance management or if there is work in people development, very specific areas, because I'm good in that, I enjoy working in that. So if there is work, as far as that aspect is concerned, you call us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are not interested. So as Murli said, I think loyalty is moving more towards the job which you love doing, and they would want to make a living just doing that, and at their at their terms.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something I'm seeing happen.
So, Mr. Venkatesh, my next question is also to you. You've been in Oman for the better part of 2 decades. And you must have seen a lot of employees, and in a previous conversation I did hear you say this, a lot of employees do tend to stick to their organization for a long period of time, maybe 2 decades or maybe even 3 decades before they move on. How do you gauge success in the coming 5 years if you're not going to be wedded to the company, if you're not going to be, if you're going to be having gig working? How do you gauge success?
Success from an individual's point of view.
From an individual's point.
How do you see if I'm here, and how do I gauge that I'm successful? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So connected to this are legal changes, job market changes, which is happening in this part of the world, which probably will be a major factor which determines on what happens as far as this particular aspect is concerned. So the way I look at it is, again, I think the longevity which Oman saw in terms of expats, people working with the same organization for 25, 30, 40 years is going to be far and few as we go ahead. Again, 2 reasons. One is the earlier longevity in the initial time could be because you couldn't change, because you had the NOC rule very much in existence. So even if you wanted to change in your younger days, okay, you see another opportunity, you could not change, right? So you are wedded to the organization, right. The organization is wedded to you, both ways, right? So both learn to coexist, okay?
Exactly.
I am okay with your weaknesses and you are okay with my weaknesses. Okay, we kind of coexist, and that is what has happened. That's what has happened. Both have learned to live with each other. It's probably something like a marriage, right?
Now this brings me to my next question. Actually, about
Accept each other's traits.
Accept each other and continue. Don't keep cribbing
Right.
about it. So that's what has happened earlier. But now, the way things are going ahead, I don't think this is going to exist anymore. Organizations here also will have to really look at retaining talent. Okay?
Yes.
Otherwise, those days of somebody just working with you is not going to happen, because number one, getting good talent into the country itself is going to be a challenge, because it's not only your organization. Talent coming into the country is also looking at what is this country offering me. Okay, what are neighboring countries offering? Should I come and work in this country? Okay, first, even before deciding whether you want to come into the company, good talents are deciding, is this country good for me to come in? Okay, what does this country offer to me? Okay, so several levels of filtrations are happening. So if you have to retain, okay, you need to keep them engaged and you need to keep them motivated. Okay, that is definitely happening.
Okay, now I'm just going to be the devil's advocate for once. Now we did say that gig working, we're going to be moving to gig working in the next 5 years. How important is it though to retain your employees?
I think it's a question of legacy for us. The organization was structured in a physical location with managers, people, somebody to manage resources, somebody to manage work. It was a legacy issue, right? And because it was a legacy issue, if you recall, lifetime employment was a concept in Japanese organizations. If you see the book Made in Japan by Akio Morita, he talks about lifetime employability. Japanese organizations were always talking about lifetime employability. In Japan, it's no more the norm. But the point is, what employees get wedded to in the organization is, one, what is my growth in this company? Two, how can I contribute in a way where I am able to do what I love, not love what I do, right? If I can do these two things, then I am engaged to the company. So it's not about satisfaction, it's about engagement. Engagement is about, do I have freedom? Do I have the autonomy? Do I have growth? And do I have independence? If these are the four levers that we normally use
Absolutely.
for engagement or for a value proposition for employees. It need not necessarily be given only to the employee in your system. Assume the gig working is happening. Assume that all our crystal ball gazing is going to work. Even your gig workers, you need to engage to be able to provide you the best. It's almost like customer. How do I hold on to the customer?
Sure.
Similarly, how do I hold on to the person who is going to add value to my company? So, to me, as long as people are in the organization, culture, engagement, all that is important. But I don't think the concept of an organization identity in terms of culture, values, that will not go
That
away.
will not go. Absolutely.
Because you will still want to be associated with an organization which has certain values.
And you relate to it.
Yes,
And
as you
personally
relate to it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to go away. Gig or no gig, it's going to be very important. Gig or no gig, engagement is going to be important. It's no more employee engagement, it is engaging with the resource or the specialized person, engaging with the company, engaging with what I love to do. That would be that's the way I see things happening.
Yeah. In fact, just to kind of relate to what Murli is saying, we run an organization. We are an independent HR consulting company. Now, we work with customers. We work with organizations. Now, we enjoy working with some organizations, and we don't enjoy working with some organizations. We don't enjoy that one. But fine, they are our customers, so we serve them. So when you get an assignment or an inquiry from an organization whom you enjoy working,
Right.
there is an overall, overall eagerness
Exactly.
to kind of back that engagement and kind of close it, irrespective of the commercials. Okay,
True.
commercials could be plus minus. That we don't really bother about it because we enjoy interacting with them. We enjoy working with them.
Very true. Very true.
So that I think would be the way the world would go ahead. Even if gig working and contract working kind of picks up, still there is a need to keep these forces connected with you as an organization. Yeah. What you do to do that could be completely different.
Yeah, that's a paradigm shift.
Paradigm shift, absolutely paradigm shift. Because in some cases you don't even see them. They're sitting somewhere in Vietnam or in Poland or wherever, right? You don't see them. So how do you keep them, excited? How do you keep them continue to contribute the best in terms of giving the best, etc. So organizations will have to completely reinvent the way they currently run, and the way the entire organization structure is laid out, and how do they get work out and stuff like that.
Okay, my next question is also to you, Mr. Venkatesh. Again, having been here in Oman for a really long time, I would like to know, there are family-run businesses, there are new age businesses, and there are aspiring foreign direct investors who are in Oman. How much focus is put on HR in this region?
Seriously speaking, I think the maturity varies between, based on the pedigree of the company, the pedigree of the organization, and what is their product and services, and how much of that is focused on human resources. Okay, now even if it's an FDI company or it's a family-owned company, if the organization's main survival depends on what the HR contributes or people contribute, then I can see that automatically there's a lot of focus on people. That's one aspect. The other aspect is government rules, because there are industries where you need to work with nationals. Okay, you are not allowed to employ other nationals. For example, oil and gas, banking, right? These are sectors where the percentage of nationals to be employed are very high. So the minute you have a large percentage of nationals to be employed, okay, if you do not give them the kind of excitement which would make them continue with you, they move on. The good talent moves on.
Right.
Okay. So that phenomenon is very much there. So so the pressure comes from two sides. One is, okay, what the government wants you to do, the percentage, and your own necessity to run your business. Number two is, when you have nationals working in that position, then if you do not keep them excited, give them career opportunities, give them that excitement to come and work, etc., very quickly talent moves away. And I've seen this happen. So this probably would be the deciding factor on would organizations focus on HR or not. So that's how I've seen it.
As a people development expert, what are some of the challenges that are marring human resources development?
What are some of the challenges, could you repeat?
That are really affecting human resource development from a global perspective?
I think to a large extent, we covered a little bit even in the workshop yesterday. We talked about, I'm a firm believer of behaviors, right? So I believe that behavior is a strong predictor of performance. So for a people development, the what is technical skills and functional skills. From a people development perspective, I think the focus should shift towards enabling the right behaviors. One is enabling the right behaviors. That means you provide an environment where the right behaviors are brought out of the people. The second is to connect the values and the culture of the company to the behaviors expected, and ensure that that is something that is given as feedback to people continuously. So the continuous feedback becomes a very critical component of people development. Gone are the days when development means training programs. That whole concept was, when you say development, you want to provide training programs. No, now we are moving away from that. We're saying, what are you learning? How are you enabling the behaviors? What behaviors need to be taught to people? Coaching, mentoring is starting to become very, very critical nowadays. You don't need a training program, but you work with the people. With one of our clients, I work with the leaders for 6 months, and it's like a coach. It's like a cricket coach or a soccer coach. You keep looking at what they're doing and keep helping them, but you're not giving them solutions. You're actually telling them how they can do better. So the development perspective, from a development perspective, I think behaviors and attitude is and should be the focus going forward.
Perfect. Anything to add to this?
Again, I would connect this to the Generation Z workforce which is coming into the market. The Generation Z workforce are very different to the millennials. We thought millennials were a completely different set of people who came into the world, but Generation Z, purely because of the high penetration of internet, high access to information, are very, very different individuals, and they're wired very differently. Okay, people who have young children probably would understand this much better, because they kind of find it very difficult to deal with them, and the same is going to carry over as soon as these young children are going to become employable individuals and come into organization. Okay, they are wired very, very, very differently. Now, when you are interacting with people like that, with very different expectations and very different ideas of what they would want out from work, okay, as an organization, we should kind of gear ourselves to kind of ensure that we are kind of giving that ethos so that the Generation Z workers contribute. Now, as Murli said, it's very important to kind of focus on behaviors and related competencies when we choose people and we groom them. Subject knowledge, job knowledge could be taught, but then if you do not focus on the behavioral aspect and then keeping that connected to what your organization stands for, the values and culture which your organization stands for, and create a bundle of this behavior and the values and cultures together and call it as core competencies, okay, which I would want my employee to have, okay, and then choose the right people who fulfill those or fit in within those core competencies and hire them, okay. Or if somebody doesn't have it, if you see that they show the right interest, groom them into fitting into those core competencies. Okay, this is the way I think we will see a win-win happening. Okay, and this needs to be mastered. This technique of identifying the right behaviors, fitting it into what your organization stands for, and then honing it continuously is a technique which organizations will need to master, and that's how I would see it.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Now, before we actually conclude this very short interview, I'd like to know, money or management notwithstanding, what is the one dream of yours that you would like to implement in the coming 5 to 10 years?
For me, I think it's very important to start for organizations to start looking at the competency piece, the behaviors piece again. Because I don't think organizations are looking at competency as behaviors. They're still looking at competency as skill and knowledge and saying we can teach them. Like exactly what Venkatesh just now said is, I would like organizations to start investing on people, grooming them. I think that's the right word, grooming them, and don't select the best, select the right fit.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. In any organization, you may be a technical whiz, you may be functionally superior. If you have poor attitude, you're going to kill the team. You're going to kill the organization. So groom them, pick the right fit, not the best fit.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much, gentlemen, for what has been a very insightful session on HR. And we also request our viewers to stay tuned for more videos in our new segment that focuses on human resource development. Thank you. This is Alvin Thomas signing off.